The veterinarian, she's been a cat specialist for 30 years, and she's killed a lot of cats. She's not scared to death. I know she's not scared to death because she's oddly been preparing for it like my entire life. So like a fun fact that I know about my mother is that when she dies, she wants to be cremated. And I know this because she'll just randomly update us every 2 to 3 months. Not exaggerating. My mom will walk into a room and she'll be like, update. Still want to be cremated. And then she goes and makes a sandwich. It's weird. Weirdest part about it, she never actually updated it until last year at Christmas dinner. She stood up in the middle of dinner and she was like, update! Still want to be cremated. But I was on the internet and I saw you can put my ashes in a plant, so I want to be a plant now. I was like, Mom, you don't want to be a plant. She's like, no, I saw it on Facebook. I can be a plant now. I was like, Mom, you don't want to be a plant. Because if you're a plant in our family, you're going to die again 2 weeks later. And I want to have that argument with my siblings, like, who forgot to water Mom? Dude, I've killed like 3 basil plants in the last 6 months. And a friend of mine was trying to make me feel better. She was like, well, actually, basil plants are really finicky. And I was like, so is my mom. I'll be honest, though, if you're like me and you travel a lot and you want people to take that job a little more seriously, I think you should just tell people your plants are your relatives. Like, hey, if you could water my mom and feed my dad, that would be great. And they'll be like, your cat's your dad? And I'll be like, yeah, it looks at me disapprovingly, just like my father. Kind of assume all cats are my father. Actually, don't feed the cat. He'll figure it out.
You're listening to the Silver Phoenix Happy Hour with Blaze and Ken. And now, Blaze and Ken.
Hi, welcome to the Silver Phoenix Happy Hour. I'm Blaze.
I'm Ken.
Liz Miele.
Oh my God, she's so great.
Incredible. I was cracking up as we were playing that clip, and because I was thinking recently, I found out that my doctor told me I'm allergic to plants, like house plants, and so so I'm right there with her, like just in terms of things that just made me laugh so hard. I was like, oh man. But
Oh man, that's hysterical.
yeah. So welcome everybody. Liz will be joining us a little bit later, comedian and an author. I don't know if you knew, but she wrote a book as well,
Yeah.
called Cats Are A-Holes.
Yep.
I don't know if we can say it on the show. I guess we can.
You can.
But yeah, so I can't wait to chat with her. So what have
Yeah.
you been up to?
A lot actually.
Mm.
We've it's been a couple of weeks now since it's ended, but I'm still reeling from the finale of Star Trek Picard. I still have a lot of feelings. I still have a lot of tears. I might still have to shed for that. It was so
Uh,
good. I recommend it to anybody. It was the beautiful ending to a 36-year journey. I'll put it that way.
okay. Good, good. I'm still watching Succession. I'm totally in it. And just, lots of other I've been really into, like, Korean TV lately, those Korean dramas. So so those are the ones I've been watching. I have yeah, I've developed an affinity toward it, so, but yeah. So I wanna talk about Liz for a second before she
Sure.
gets in here. Um, I think it's so cool. So I don't know if you knew this about me, but when I first had moved to the city, I did um, a stand-up show with I produced. I shouldn't say I wasn't the comedian. I can't remember those lines, and I don't think I could handle the audience. Like it's a dance
Yeah.
that you have to do
Yeah.
to be able to do everything that a comedian does, especially a stand-up comedian. Um, but I did this show called The Center of Attention with Keith Alberstadt and Chris Welks,
Yeah.
and and that's where Liz was on the show, and I was so impressed with her, and it was always so good too because I was always surrounded by a lot of guys, so to see like women up there doing stand up, it was incredible. So. Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to her today and see what she's been up to. Obviously, there's a lot she's been up to, so
Yeah.
we'll catch
Actually,
up with her soon.
I was happy when you would tell me that she was coming on because I was only just recently introduced to her. I went down a YouTube rabbit hole of comedians,
Yeah.
and one of her full sets were recommended, and I laughed my ass off. She is
Yeah.
hysterical. I love her.
Yeah, I know. I can't wait to ask a bunch of questions. So I know that her tour is started. It started in Canada, and actually, I see that she's joined us. So let's bring her in so that we can get all the information. So welcome, Liz, to the show. Hi.
Hi, how's it
How
going?
are you? Good. So this is my co-host Ken.
Hi.
So tell us about the tour first of all. Let's tell everybody about it. So it's called New Year, New Me Tour. It started in Canada in April, mid-April. Tell us, some of the, excitement of how this is different from other tours for you.
Well, I honestly, it kind of at this point, tours just kind of blend together. I mean,
Yeah,
I would say what I've really noticed is that I started touring again in April of 2021 when things started to kind of half open and like clubs were doing like a third full or like stuff like that. And like you would do okay because it's only a third full and everybody was kind of like hungry to leave the house. But as soon as things went full capacity, you're like, people's hearts aren't at full capacity. Like you learn
uh,
pretty quickly that it was like harder to sell tickets and like people were apprehensive. You got a lot of emails that are like, hey, I would love to go, but I'm just not ready. And like, whatever. And even when, I have complete understand. I don't think I would have been ready if I wasn't like, I'm ready to make money again.
yeah.
But I would say in the last like 8 months, I've really seen that like, I really think we're in the beginning of like a live performance boom. Like I think like I have a friend that's a professional magician that he's like, dude, all these places are opening up in ways that they never opened up
Yeah.
years ago. And I have more work than I ever had before. And I was like, who's hiring you? I don't even know what you do. Um, but like I see in all realms of music and dance and comedy and magic, like I do think we're actually at the beginning of what is going to be at the very least a couple of years of a live performance boom, just because A, we want to get out of the house, but B, like I think people remember like, oh, this is way better in person. Like this is an experience.
Well, I mean, we're bringing up COVID. I don't want to start off on a downer or whatever, but as a professional, as a professional and an entertainer, how did you cope with the whole time period?
I handled it pretty well. I think because I suffer from depression, I was like, oh, well, that's definitely going to happen. So, like, because when I either feel like I'm about to go through a depressive episode and or have been in one and was like, oh, this is doing some stuff I'm not proud of, I kind of was like preemptively was like, why wouldn't I get depressed? Like, I've never stopped before and I'm going to have to stop. And I was in the middle of a European tour with like my best friend and I had to leave and like everything about it was like, yeah, this is where depression comes from. So I kind of was like, let's get ahead of this. So like I was getting on a plane back to the US and I like reached out to my friend that I was supposed to be touring with and I was like, we should do a podcast. I was like, I've always been anti-podcast. I don't want to do it. I know their
Yeah.
benefits, obviously, but I was just like, I don't feel like I have anything interesting to say. But then I was like, all right, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it with my friend Maria Shahada. So we started immediately, like I was still on the plane and I was like typing up notes of like what we might do. And within a week and a half of shutdown, we had 3 episodes out. And we did
Good.
that for 2.5 years. So I think that working on something with the friend, I had to learn, like I'm a pretty slow learner and learning how to do all like the editing and like all that stuff and like working with a friend in a capacity I never worked before. Like it was like I decided to go back to school the first day of shutdown. And I think that was like really healthy and distracting. So I
Yeah.
think that helped. And then very quickly, I got a bunch of like corporate Zoom shows, which was money, but was unpleasurable. I mean, I got more corporate work during the first year of COVID than I have in the 20 years that I've done stand up. Like, it was just like, I was like, so you guys knew about me this whole time and you didn't want to give me money.
Yeah.
I,
Um,
I'm actually curious, real quick, because so you would do a set on Zoom for other people, right? Is that what essentially is what it was?
yeah, I would do anywhere from 20 minutes to 45 minutes for a company or somebody who put on a show. Yeah.
How is it though in an environment like that where you're probably not getting the feedback that you're probably looking for or the laughs? Like how can you tell how they're reacting?
So you have to so is it ideal? Absolutely not. But I heard everybody from being like, it's not that bad to it was the worst thing I ever did and I never want to do it again. Do I want to do it again? No, I don't.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it was the only solution at this point. Um, I wanted to continue to grow as a comic. and I made the best of it. So if you do a college gig, if you do a comedy club, if you do a music venue, if you do an outdoor festival, if you do a bar show, they all actually have different environments. And if you do a massive theater, like I've performed in front of 5,000 people, it's awesome, but also your timing is off and you have to adjust it because it's, there's like a delay in laughter coming, the same way that if you do an outdoor festival, you never actually get those laughs because they get dissipated into the wind or whatever. So I think because I know how to adjust my expectations for all these different types of venues I've done in the last 20 years, I was able to be like, all right, somebody's vacuum cleaning in this ear and somebody's telling their dog to shut up here and someone's laughing there. It was very disjointed and it was hard. But sometimes I'd use smiles. Sometimes everybody was muted and I just have to look at smiley faces and be like, oh my God, I got like 6 smiles. I'm killing it. Like you just adjust. Like,
Yeah.
if there was an alternative, sure. And when things really started to open up and they started to do, rooftop shows and park shows and whatever, I was one of the first people to be like, yes, let me fucking be in a park with some squirrels and tell jokes. But I started a show called Zoom because I noticed really quickly that like the stuff that was already polished it wasn't pleasurable because I know what it sounds like when it kills and it's not killing. So I was like, screw it, I'm just going to do new stuff. And so I started the show called Zoom Diner, which was kind of based off the fact that like me and my girlfriends that are comics, like we'd meet up in between shows and I'd be like, hey, this line's working, but I can't get this line to work. Do you have any ideas? Or like, I just don't know what direction to go in. And we would just kind of give each other notes or ideas or ask questions. And we'd always do it in a diner in between spots. And so I started inviting 2 different comics on. We would all do 5 minutes and then everybody would give notes. So it would be like, hey, I've heard that perspective before. I'm not saying you can't do it, but have you thought about going in this direction to make it more original? Or, hey, that's really funny. What about this? Or, hey, I have a tag idea. And basically you would just have people watch the process of how would somebody punch up a joke or help a joke. Or sometimes we would just go on a tangent and it was not helpful at all. We were just like just being stupid.
Yeah.
But those became super successful in the sense that I made it, pay what you want. And I was able to make really good money for me and my friends while my last hour that I put out called The Ghost of Academic Future.
Yeah.
70% of that was written on Zoom and through my Zoom Diner show.
Oh, wow.
Amazing. Actually, if we can hold right here, I will play a clip from that particular set. So hold on.
For everybody that didn't clap, I've been on 11 ghost tours. I'm pretty sure I'm an expert. They're all the same. This is every ghost tour I've ever been on. A failed actor stands in front of an old building. He's wearing old-timey clothes, but very new-timey sneakers. And then he tells a very boring story with a lot of enthusiasm. So he's like, Margaret used to make quilts in 1842. Then she got cholera and died. And now she makes quilts forever. That's it. That's the whole tour. Right? It's just that over and over again. And this guy, he wouldn't even mix it up. He would just like jump scare the last phrase. And I was like, what are you doing, Brian? You're an actor. Get into it. Diversify the scares. Maybe whisper a creepy fact or crawl under our dresses. Tell our uterus a haunted tale. Or start making shit up. Make sure we're paying attention. Be like, I once had a sexual experience with a ghost. She got pregnant. I have a half ghost daughter. Her name is Greta. Oh my God, thank you for laughing. That whole joke is contingent on you knowing there's a viral meme of Greta Thunberg being a ghost. And from the past, it went viral during the pandemic. Okay, if you don't know, honestly, I think we can all assume, right, that Greta Thunberg is a ghost. I know I just said for 5 minutes I don't believe in ghosts, but she's 16 years old. She's the only person in the world that cares about climate change. I thought I was unfun, and then I discovered Greta Thunberg. I was like, sweetheart, we're all gonna die someday. Lean in.
So let's take a deeper dive into that book, just in terms of where did the idea come from, the name of the book too, and tell us a little bit about your cats, or if you have any. I don't know what's if it's made up or not. You never know.
I'm very fortunate. This is not how people get book deals, but so both my parents are veterinarians. I always, whenever somebody's like, oh, what kind of comedy do you do? And I was like, I write jokes about cats that nobody wants to hear. But I had a joke on YouTube. It was like, it's still one of my favorite jokes that's about, I forget what I titled it, but it's basically like, the thesis is like, you don't buy a cat, like something bad happens to you and then they kind of fall into your life. And so it's just, you know what I mean? Like that you don't choose it. They like literally your life is in shambles and then like a cat appears.
Yeah.
And this publisher had 2 cats with his wife, and he wanted someone to write a book about cats sucking, but from a loving perspective. And he was searching everywhere and he couldn't find it. Either people hated cats or people like loved them and they thought they were angels. And I was here in the middle being like, no, they suck, but they're my favorite. Like they're my
Yeah.
favorite. Like, and so he found that joke. He loved it. He brought me in, and basically that's where we started to kind of brainstorm together. I submitted an outline and they approved it, and I got to write the book I wanted, basically with his idea of just they suck, but whatever. So it kind of was like, originally this guy, his name's Jason Katzman. Can't make that up. So it was originally like his dream baby, and then I took over it and made it what it is. And honestly, it was just a place to put all my stories and feelings. It's like, I would say it's like half like funny history, like the Egyptians loving cats, or why we have bodega cats, and the fact that we used to have cats on ships and it was pest control and it kept people safe. The fact that the reason we have farm cats again is it was free pest control, and now with like bodega cats, it is efficient and free pest control, and that's why they sleep on bread and everybody loves them. And so when they say that cats don't have jobs, they actually do. Like nobody acknowledges that they just, even their pheromones alone, they have a job.
Right.
So there's a lot of like funny history in there, but then there's like op-ed pieces. Like I have a whole chapter on how to name your cat. Like we don't need any more Simbas. We're done with Garfield. We're done with Simbas. Steve isn't a good name. We're going like, give them a degree, give them some kind of history background, like, Dr. Muffin pumpkin cakes, like something. They're not going to college. Like, let's have fun with it. Like I get so mad. And so when I sign books now, they'll be like, oh, can you make it out to like Taco Face? And I was like, absolutely. Taco Face is such a good name.
Snugglepuss.
Yeah.
I think my dad's girlfriend had a cat named Peaches Snugglepuss. So
perfect. I want them, if they could talk, to be embarrassed. Like that's what I want. Or to be proud. They'll be like, oh my God, I'm a doctor. This is crazy. So it's like a mix of that, but it truly is like an honest perspective on cats, but also acknowledging, well, why are they being assholes? Well, the truth of the matter is that they are predators. Like you literally have a little lion in your house and they're doing a good job, but sometimes they're attacking your curtains. Like that sucks. Like maybe you need to have less, gazelle like curtains. I don't know. But I am proud of it. It's very silly. I always say, like, put it behind your toilet or next to a litter box. Like it is truly pooping reading.
right.
But
tell people where they can buy the book at.
Everywhere. So it's like Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, IndieBound, most like local bookstores will carry it. And I sell it after shows and stuff like that, and I'll sign it.
Cool.
But I had my mom read it. Like it's weird because with my stand-up, I test it. I had my mom read it and my editor read it. My mom read it. I was like, hey, make sure I'm not saying anything wrong. And then, like, don't let me be out there saying wrong things about cats. And then my editor was like, I told him when I got the book deal, I was like, hey, I'm dyslexic. He's like, it'll be fine. And then like during the edits, he'd be like, what's this word? And I'd look at it and I'd be like, I don't know. I'll rewrite that sentence. I have no idea what I wrote.
I actually have a question going back to stand-up, the way that you storytell. And how did you find like your voice and your cadence?
I started when I was 16. I discovered stand-up when I was like 13. I don't know. It's interesting to me now because like I got diagnosed as dyslexic when I was in the 3rd grade. I couldn't read. They put me in all these special programs to like, get better at it. And what they do is, which is smart, is like, you're not good at reading and writing. Well, that's what you're going to do with all your free time. So I would go to this college after school a couple days a week, and some college kid would like help me with my homework. And then we would read together, and then I would write stories and I would make these little books. I made this book. I had a series. I was always an author. It's called Spiffy the Spider. and Spiffy would go on these adventures. Spiffy had like hundreds and brothers and sisters, which is actually a really funny joke because I'm one of 5 and I always felt like my parents had too many kids. So I'm really kind of proud of how funny I was as like a 7-year-old. But I would write these like books and I would write these stories. And then as I got older and I was like kind of like 12, 13, I would write these short stories for school and stuff like that. And I started to realize that I like writing, even if it's hard for me, but to this day, I'm still not good at spelling and grammar and stuff like that. So I didn't want anybody to see it. And when I discovered stand-up, I was like, yes, I can write, but nobody actually reads my writing. I just perform my writing. And it just became an obsession. And I started writing jokes. I started showing them to the few girlfriends that I had in school. And I became truly obsessed, and I started performing when I was 16, and I never really looked back. It was just a place that I could start to find myself, because I remember watching comics on TV and being like, oh my God, they had such strong opinions. I don't think I have opinions. And I very much grew up in a like speak when spoken to kind of household. And I felt very like emotionally and like mentally suppressed, because I took care of my little brothers. I had a job. I came kind of from an abusive household. I just kept small, and I'm already like a very tiny person. And I think stand up was one of the first places that I was like, that does make me angry, or why do we do that? And I started to think in a way that I truly didn't have the capacity or energy to think that way, or the time. And what's interesting, I took a persuasive writing class. It was like a mandatory class in college, freshman year. And I'd already been doing stand-up a little bit, but I still to this day think it had a really big, I'm still friends with that professor. Like it had a big influence, because that is what stand-up is. It's just persuasive writing. Like, even if we come from different backgrounds, you know nothing about me, why would you at the very least want to listen to me, let alone agree with me? So I think of somebody like Bill Burr, who is a great persuasive writer. He has very misogynistic jokes. I'm absolutely an extreme feminist, but at the same time, I love Bill Burr. His premise, I'll be like, go fuck yourself, Bill. And then you get to the end and I go, I see how you got there. Like, even if I still don't agree at the end, I understand why he feels the way he does. And I agree that that's where I would also conclude to if I had the experiences he had. So I think that's what it is. If you are a Republican male gun owner that feels like the world is being taken away from you, we are on opposite sides of the spectrum. But I can make that person laugh if I write the joke the right way, that they'll be like, if I was a tiny woman in New York, I might feel that way. And I think that's what my goal is, not to convince you, not to change you, just for you to see and go, that's pretty funny. Like, I could see how she got there. I started out pretty monotone. I was, again, pretty scared. I didn't really want to be seen. My brain works really fast, but my mouth does not. I still have trouble pronouncing words. I clearly, if you looked at my notebook, I can't spell anything. I found myself stumbling if I talked too fast or not. You kind of have to stick the landing every time, or it messes up the joke.
Right.
So I found myself being just really slow and calculated, because my writing was stronger than my performance. And as I became a stronger performer, as I became more confident, as I became less scared for people to see all of me, not just the certain parts of me, not just the funny part of me, but the chaotic part of me, or the angry part of me, or the ranty part of me, that's when my storytelling really started to take off. Because the truth is if something happens to me, I call up my sister, I call up one of my best friends, and I go, fucking let me tell you about what happened today. And I tell them this crazy story. And it's chaotic. It's all over the place. It's me ranting. They can't get a word in edgewise. But they're laughing in some places. They have follow-up questions in other places. And I start to go, that might be something. You know what I mean? Like, the fact that they even had like follow-up questions. And then it starts to be like, what information do you need to know about me if you're not my sister, if you haven't known me since we were 10? And then it's about, again, that persuasive writing. Even if you can't relate in any which way, you're going to be on my side. So I have this new joke I was in Europe for 2 weeks, and I got a subway fine for not paying the subway fee in Paris. Not true. We paid. We couldn't find our ticket to exit. We couldn't find one ticket, but I showed the receipts. I showed everything, and we still got a ticket. It was a 60 € ticket. And I was pissed. I was
Yeah.
fucking pissed.
I
And
don't
so my
blame
friend
you.
even has film of me being like, fucking, like just being a cunt. But I was mad. And it was my best friend's birthday. She had never been to Europe before. We literally are 10 minutes into our tour, 10 minutes into Paris, and we get this ticket, and I'm furious. And so I pay the ticket. We're heading to our hotel. I look at my friend Danny. I go, I just need to be angry for 10 minutes, and then we're going to move past this, and we're going to have a great day. So I rant to her a little bit. We check into our hotel. I was like, let's go fucking get coffee and croissants. Like, this doesn't matter. And so then we recap at the end of the night, and I'm ranting. I'm just being like, there's no crime. Why are they like, if you treat like, there's no crime. Like a criminal does crime, but there's no crime. There's no crime. I have receipts. You can't do crime and have receipt. Like, just being crazy. And so that night I told because we're in Paris, and of course we find out that they're monsters. Like, they prey on tourists, and that
Yeah,
even
yeah.
the people don't like them. But
Yeah.
every country, I start telling that story, and I start to hone it. Because in Paris, they clearly know what we're going through, but Berlin, they might not. But everywhere has a subway system. So now I'm like, I'm somebody of a subway system, and I always pay. I see people jump the turnstiles all the time. I've never jumped a turnstile. Yet here I am getting a ticket, even when I paid. And the whole thing is like, all right, if you treat people that do the right thing like criminals, this is my origin story. This is how you become a criminal. So as I keep telling the story, it starts to take shape. And now I know how to tell it, so that whether you live in a place with a subway system or not, you understand that I'm in the right, and how the fact that I needed the ticket to get out doesn't even make sense, and why I would be irresponsible with my ticket in the first place. But then why this is like, now I get everybody at the end, where you're getting a ticket for something when you actually paid. Everybody's on board at the end. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if you agree with me or not. We all can believe that when you get fined, even when you paid for something or even when you did the right thing, is garbage and not how society is. And then when I build up my anger, everybody's like, yeah, even if you don't agree with the words coming out, like my last line is literally, I'm going to find the Taliban. I'm going to figure out why they don't like you. We're going to come together and we're going to fuck up France. Like, it gets so aggressive that
Right.
people are cheering at the end, because they're like, and I was like, this is why nobody likes you, France. Like, literally just being crazy. But I build up to it because you're just like, is 60 euros a lot of money? In the scheme of my life, it isn't. But I am at level 10 mad. I am at you put me in jail mad for something, because I already paid 210. I already paid 210 euros. You're getting 80 times more the amount of money because what? I didn't exit correctly? Are you crazy? So I think with my storytelling is like, this is unfiltered Liz. This is I just got a ticket and I'm ranting to you, Liz. So how do I take that, punch it up a little bit, and give that to the audience so that they are equal parts my friend and equal parts they get the best version of me? Because my poor friends there's crying in the mix of there's like, I just repeating stuff over and over again. So it's just edited Liz. And I would say my cadence and my voice is just who I am. I'm batshit crazy. And I just figured out how to bottle that and shape it a little bit.
We kind of want to get to know our guests a little bit more. And so I think my first question to you, we're going to go back and forth between me and Ken, but are you afraid of anything? Is there something that you're like super afraid of? Do you have any fears?
All of them. I have all the fears. I'm afraid of dying. I'm afraid of being kidnapped, even though I'm almost 40. I'm definitely afraid of like getting lost. I mean, almost half the things that I do, I'm afraid of. Like, because they're right in front of the thing I want to do, I can push past it. But like, we made like a mini doc of me going to Europe. Like, this was my 10th European tour, and my friend was interviewing me, and I was like, I've been sick for like 2 days, just like worried my friend's gonna die. And she's like, why are you worried that I'm gonna die? I was like, well, usually I'm worried that I'm gonna die, but like my anxiety decided that doesn't matter because I care about you more than I care about myself. So then now I'm worried that you're gonna die, and you have kids and you have a way more important life than I do. So now I'm worried you're gonna die. She goes, I don't think I'm going to die. I was just like, well, then maybe you'll get injured. Maybe you lose an arm. Like, I don't know. My brain is going insane. And I just have a ton of anxiety. Like, I don't think there's anything I'm not I'm scared of everything.
So then I know that you have talked about therapy a lot as well in a lot of your sets. Um, are there techniques then that you pull from all the time when when you're starting to kind of go somewhere? Is there a specific technique, or is it a combination?
Any kind of calming technique, like I think a lot of times I'll find a way to like self-soothe, which could be anywhere from something unhealthy, like go have a cookie. Like you can't seem to do this without, dopamine. So go get yourself a chocolate chip cookie and or call a friend. Sometimes I'll go for a walk. Sometimes I'll like listen to music, like whatever kind of self-soothing I need to do. Because the truth of the matter is all my fears really haven't stopped me. I might be more cautious. I might take extra literal precautions, but I've never let it get in the way, which I'm very grateful. That is my personality, is to be equal parts scared and equal parts, well, I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah, courageous.
I got one. Do you have a moment that you think you're the most proud of professionally?
Yeah. It's a little bit on the back end. Um, I was 10 years in and I was not where I wanted to be. I had accomplished some of my goals, but I couldn't seem to like continue to go in the direction I wanted to. I just kind of like went up and then like flatlined and maybe even went down a little bit. And I was insane, like genuinely deeply depressed and probably becoming bitter, if not already bitter, like just not a pleasurable person to talk to, whether you were a stranger or a friend. Um, and I was really unhappy. And I remember talking to a friend of mine, like a girlfriend I've known since we were 14, and she's not in comedy, she does social work. And I was just sad and I was just venting. And I remember she was like, "Well, if you don't like comedy, why don't you just quit?" And I was mad. I was really mad at her. Like genuinely like hung up the phone. I was like, "She doesn't know and she doesn't you know what I mean? You're supposed to be my best friend." Like just crazy. Like just really mad at her. I was mad at her in my head for days. And then I kind of was like, well, clearly the words coming out of my mouth make it seem like I don't like comedy. So either she's right or I'm not projecting what's going on correctly. And I started to be a little bit more introspective. And I was like, do I still love comedy? Do I still love doing stand up? Yeah, I love everything about it. I love writing. I love the problem solving aspect of it. I love performing. I love writing new jokes. I love putting an act together. Everything about stand up, I still love. And that's still true today. I hate the business side. The business side makes me miserable. The business side makes me feel like I'm not good enough. The business side makes me feel like a parent that won't call me back. Like the business side makes me feel lowest of low. And I kind of had this moment that I was like, well, then I'm just going to do whatever I can without the business side. If the business side doesn't want me, if show business doesn't want me, but I still want to do stand up, how do I continue to do stand up without the business? So I stopped submitting to festivals. I stopped submitting to clubs. I stopped any kind of audition. And I made a list of everything that I wanted to accomplish that I could do without the business side. And the first thing was make an album. So I decided I wanted to make an album. Real comics make an album. I want to be seen as a real comic, and it'll help me showcase myself as a headliner so I could get more headlining work. And it was 100% the path that I wanted to go down. And how do I do that on my own? So I had lost my manager. He had gone somewhere else. And I decided to kind of invest time in social media and PR. This was honestly 11 years ago. So Gary Vaynerchuk, who now everybody knows, he had just come out with a book called Crush It. It was like this thin. And I had met what is now one of my best friends and was my roommate for 11 years. Chris, we had met, he took some headshots for me. And then he was like, hey, I'm thinking about getting this book. Do you want to come to Barnes and Nobles with me? And then I ended up buying the book, but I went on this course of just, if a manager and an agent, their whole job is to like shout from the rooftops and tell people about you, I think you could do that with social media. I think I'm just going to do that.
Yeah.
And I didn't really understand it. I was on everything, but I just didn't know what to do with it. And so between making my own stuff and making it on my own, so I self-produced and self-released my first album, which is now on YouTube. It's called Emotionally Exhausting. It has millions of views years later. But I started getting super dorky into social media, and I've probably read like 15 books, and I continue to just be kind of on the upper trends of things, even as I continue to stay on it. And then I've now self-produced four albums, and 2 of those are like official specials. And I'm self-producing another one in September, and that was life-changing. And like for a couple,
Congratulations, too.
Yeah,
yeah, thank
amazing.
you. But like now I'm the social media guru to like half my community. And, I've had a lot of success on YouTube, and people are like, oh, Liz, she just knew when to get on it. I've been on it for 15 years. I've been experimenting with YouTube. My first viral video was 10 years ago on YouTube. I've just been accidentally prepared for this new trend of YouTube having value, and I'm not scared or embarrassed to do things on my own. And I feel now super fortunate because everything is trending towards what I had been doing for the last 10 years, and I look like a goddamn genius.
Yeah, I was gonna say, doesn't that feel so good?
but the truth of the matter is it all came out of a desperate place of feeling like I didn't belong, and feeling like I might not be able to do this thing I love if I don't
Right.
find some kind of survival technique. And
Right.
it was, not only was it life-changing, but whenever I do bump up against this fear that we were talking about before, I can remember that I've hurdled it on my own before. So I again, I don't really know where that gumption comes from and where that drive comes from, but I do believe, think about the people in your life you love the most. If your best friend got cancer and she couldn't pay for chemo, are you going to let her die, or are you going to start a fundraiser? Are you going to start figuring out a way to? So I think when you really care about something, a human, a project, something that's going on in the world, you figure it out. And I'm equal parts a good friend as I am a good creator, because I care.
Yeah.
So real quick, so what was the resolution with that friend who told you that maybe you shouldn't being a comedian?
I went back to her. I told her, I was really angry at you for a couple of days, but the truth is I think the business side is really bumming me out, and I'm going to figure out how to do it without the business side. And she was like, cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
she's,
And you're all good, right?
oh yeah, she's
Just
still one of
wanna
my
make
best
sure.
friends.
Yeah.
I the thing is like, I actually, and I was in therapy at the time, and I was having a hard time with therapy because I remember, I was 26 or 27 when I started to like work on this thing on my own. And that thing came out when I was 28. But I was in therapy for like maybe a year and a half, and having a rough go of it, because every time I went, I found out something new that sucked about me. And I remember after 2 years, I went into her office and I was like, can we just talk about something that's nice for one? Like, I'm tired of learning about everything that sucks about me. Like, I'm not saying I'm not going to continue to learn and be better, but like, could really use a compliment. Like, could you be? And she was like, no, you're right. She's like, let's talk about something that's nice. And it was about 3 years of learning everything that sucked about me, and it wasn't fun, but
Yeah.
I like myself more because I got past it, and I was willing to look at my flaws and take accountability. And I think it's not fun. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to learn that you suck.
But you know what? I think that's how I've been through it. Ken's been through it. I know because Ken and I talk all the time. But it's the growing part. It's the once somebody says something, and especially somebody close to you, and they say something that triggers you a little bit, in some way, then that kind of forces you to then take a relook at things. And especially as a creative person, somebody who, has that side, you really do. You kind of hold it in for a minute and let it resonate, and then figure out, okay, so what is it? Which path? What am I doing? But I'm glad that you stuck with it and you figured it out. And because look now what you have, a big tour coming up, or that you're in the middle of, actually, and lots of amazing things happening. So definitely bravo, and I'll say cheers to that with
Absolutely.
our seltzers and whatever.
Beverages.
So cheers, yes.
Mm.
So my next question is, I really want to know what makes you laugh. What makes you like good and laugh, like, belly laugh?
God, I love dark humor. I really do love, like, you shouldn't say it and you say it. Like, just I come from like a really dark family. Like, I have jokes about it. Like, both my grandmothers committed suicide. There's a lot of mental illness in my family. My whole family in some capacity has struggled with it. I love a good fucked up suicide joke. I think it's, you know what I mean? And you should, like, that's why I get really mad at people that are like, you know, people have been hurt and, you know, people suffered. And you're like, yeah, you're talking about me. You're talking about me. You're talking about my family. Like, yeah, some people want empathy. And absolutely, if that's how you heal, I want all the empathy in the world. But I want empathy plus like really fucked up jokes. Like, it makes me laugh, like genuinely just makes, the more fucked up, the more like, and like my mom loves them too. Like, we used to tell my mom dead baby jokes. My mom's had 5 kids. And everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. And we would tell my mom dead baby jokes and she would laugh so hard while saying, I'm going to hell, because she like grew up Catholic. And now she doesn't even say I'm going to hell anymore. So I don't even know how Catholic she is. But like, even I've had some moments like, I don't know if you know Adrienne Appalucci.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, she's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I think she's one of the best comics out there, but she's even darker than I am. And so just in general, our conversations kill me. But like, she'll tell a joke and I'll be like, God, Adrienne, like, you know what I mean? Like almost that, like, you're going to hell, even though I don't believe in it. Like, there's some of them I'm laughing so hard, but I'm also like embarrassed. Like,
Yeah.
I love that feeling where you're like, I hope nobody sees me laughing. Like,
It's almost like that feeling where it's like, I know how bad I am and you trump that.
yeah.
Yeah.
She
You
makes
know?
me laugh so hard. But I think in general, like, the first round of being sad is sad. I'm with my friends and I'm crying and I'm ranting, and you know, I can be funny when I'm sad, but I would say it's at least 60% sad, 40% funny. But then the next go of it is going to be 70% funny, 30% sad, and then eventually it's like a joke or whatever. And I
Yeah.
feel really fortunate that like in my lowest moments, A, I can laugh, and B, my friends will make me laugh. And then vice versa. Like, I've had girlfriends call me up at their lowest and I'm like cracking jokes and they're like, I knew you were the person to call.
Yeah.
So I think what makes me laugh is like the hardest audience, if you think about it. Like, one of my really close girlfriends just lost her dad, and you know, I was talking to her every day, and by the end of the phone call we're like gut laughing, and I'm like, yo, am I good or what? Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I've known her like 20 years. She's the saddest she's ever been. And I think I killed. Like, I mean, here's my Venmo. And what you like. But like, I think that is like the highest reward, to make the people you care about laugh, but also
Yeah.
like genuinely. And then like, I get audience members, like, you know, my brother has bipolar 1. He's been in and out of mental institutions. I have jokes about it, and I'll have people come up to me afterwards and they're like, thank you for talking about it. Thank you for making it fun. Like, I've been in and out of mental institutions, and you give me something to send to people. And like, or like somebody else is like, I went through that. Like, you know, my dad was like that, and that was really hard. And now I have something that I can like reference to. Like, I think also really painful, sad situations can be embarrassing. And then I think what good comedy can do is make it just feel both relatable, but less hidden and
Right.
less shameful. And I wouldn't be ashamed if heart disease ran in my family. So why am I going to be ashamed that mental illness runs in my family? And also, we're fucking fun. Like,
Yeah.
dude, my brother's the funniest. My brother's 10 times funnier than I'll ever be. So, I mean, I'm just fortunate that he doesn't have this kind of drive.
All right, Ken, last question to you, and then our final one.
Actually, can you give us an example of how you would handle a bad heckler?
Mm.
So it really depends. Like, a heckler isn't just a heckler. There's literally,
All right, you know what? I'll make it easier. How do you deal with someone who is most likely just drunk and being obnoxious just to hear themselves heard while you're trying to perform?
okay. So, I mean, the first thing would literally be like I'll probably talk to them like my therapist. Like, I'd be like, what's going on with you, buddy? You all right? You can't handle your liquor? You want to talk about it? Let's get your ideas out. And then you start to let them embarrass themselves, where they're just like, and you're like, okay, all right. At what point did you feel like you handled this better than I was handling this? Like, at what point is your thought process stronger than my thought process? And then you'd see, like, you have to kind of figure out where they are. Are they just belligerent? Is this just literally somebody that if they stood up, they'd fall down? Or is this somebody in the beginning of their drunk heckling where they're just like, They just feel like, oh my God, this girl's getting attention and I want attention. Da, 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 da. So depending, if they're belligerent, there's really not much you can do other than you're like, hey buddy, either it's going to be nap time, nap time, or you're going to have to leave. Like you have to choose a lane. But if they're like just erratic or whatever, I don't really want to deal with them. That's not fun for anybody involved. You're not really going to win that situation. And I would probably be like, hey bud, I think you got to go. Like I was in, I think it was Indianapolis like a month ago. And this guy, he shouted out a little bit during my opener. My opener, Neil, is a big guy. He's like got to be like 6 something, covered in tattoos. Like I wouldn't fuck with. I know he's a teddy bear, but I wouldn't fuck with Neil. But this guy was like shouting stuff out, and Neil just kind of looked over and he was like, "Right on, buddy." Like he would just kind of almost like pretending like he was like a hype man in a rap group, just like, you know what I mean, and just like. But I tell these ranty stories. I need timing. This guy's shouting in the middle of my thing, so I look at him and I go, "Hey, bud, you got to stop." And he goes, I don't know. The devil's in the room. And I was like, sure, that's great. But if he didn't pay a 2-drink minimum, I don't want him in the room. Like, let's calm down. So I was like, you got to be quiet. Like, you know what I mean? Like everybody paid to be here. Let's be quiet. And he's like, I got it. Like I couldn't tell what mindset he was in. And he was quiet for like another 10 minutes. And then he shouted it again. I ignored it. I went in, and then he interrupted another joke. And I was like, bud, you're gonna have to leave. Like, and then he started talking about the white devil and da 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 da. And I was like, these are all valid points, but the time to tell me is either before the show or after the show, not in the show. And so they ended up kicking him out. And I felt bad. Like I was like, I don't want anybody to be kicked out. But also, if you don't kick them out, then you have a room full of people that don't have a good time. I'm not the best version of myself. Like he messed up 2 jokes that I never finished because I was dealing with him. And that's not fair to anybody that paid to see my full hour, to see a full performance.
Right.
And I'd rather rescue the rest of the show than prove that. I don't need to prove that I'm better than anybody. I don't know what's going on in his life. Maybe he had a bad day and he thought he could handle having fun and he can't. Like, I don't know. But like at some point, it's not worth truly dealing with. So, but like I have like you go girl hecklers, which I've learned you can't be mean to, even though they're being incredibly disruptive. You have to be like, hey, I know you're having fun. And you teach people about timing. But like the only time like mean Liz comes out is when they're not belligerent, they're present and they're trying to be a dick. And it's like, well, if you're a full grown adult being a dick, then I'm going to be a full grown adult with 20 years experience being a dick harder. Like that's what's going to happen. So any heckler video that I've put out is because some full grown adult wanted to be a full grown dick. And I'm not, that's when I start to like, but I would say 70% of the hecklers, I'm anywhere from like softball, like a little bit like, what is this? What are we doing here? Like truly like a kitten that's scratching you, but they don't know what they're doing. Like I really am like, I try to be the bigger person, or it's, hey, bud, I don't have time for this. I'm not dealing with it. That's like truly most of them. The ones I don't want to tell somebody to fuck off. I don't want to be I know who I am at full-fledged dick, and it's not nice. I don't like that version of me. So I don't really want to do that either. And not for a video and not to feel better that what is it called? Like a vulnerability hangover, where you'll say too much about something. Like maybe you're sitting on a train with somebody and you start to be like, yeah, and my dad got cancer and I don't know if he ever loved me and da-da-da-da. And then they get off the train and you're like, I just told this man my whole life story.
Yeah.
And you start to feel a little bit like vulnerable, like, oh my God, I hope they don't know my last name and blah, blah, blah. You kind of have like an angry hangover. Like you might in the moment be like, fucking, he deserved it and da-da-da-da. But I've had a couple like I was a bitch like hangovers where I was like, I did not like who I was. And even though I won in quotations, I don't want to be that person. So that's my approach. There's tons of comics that are like, you deserve it. If you show up and you're a dick, this is what you get. But I don't want to be mean. That's not who I want. It's not who I've tried to grow up to be.
Yeah, I'm sure the audience is very smart and intuitive too to know what's kind of happening with that specific person too. Sometimes they'll, at least just when I did the show before and produced, I would hear people kind of stepping in for the comedian before the comedian even said anything. They would be like, "Shut up, buddy," or whatever, you know. So
Yeah.
I always appreciated that I didn't have to get involved beyond that and let the audience kind of do it for for the comedian too in a lot of places. So
Yeah.
and our last question is, and this is I'm sure one that you've heard before, and you've kind of actually said a lot of it throughout this interview, that could definitely be helpful to somebody who's just starting out. But what piece of advice do you have for someone who wants to be a comedian that's just starting out?
Write everything down. Like it has to be like a no judgment zone. Like every single, like most of my jokes stem from stuff that is not funny. Like somebody hurt my feelings. I got a ticket. You know what I mean? It's I don't I don't really like the perspective of like what's funny about this, because that's not really a good question. A better question is, um, what is unique about this? What is interesting about this? What are the strong feelings that come out of this? I think what makes me relatable is I'm showing every strong feeling, like absolute confusion, super excitement, complete anger. Like it's max level of whatever it is, whether I'm like elated and this is the best day I've ever had and I have to tell you about it, or this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me and everybody should die and I'm going to tell you why. And I think a lot of times people don't write down everything that's happening or everything they're thinking because they don't know where it's going to go next. But sometimes years go by and I don't know where it's going to go next. So you write everything down. And like I had this, it's like a 7-minute joke about trying to go to Finland. Like I missed a flight going to Finland because my passport expired in less than 3 months. So there's some Scandinavian countries, your passport it can't expire within 3 months of you being there. So I was 3 days shy of 3 months, but I was going for a weekend. And it's like, A, nobody told me, but B, like logically speaking, I don't fucking want to move to Finland. Like, you guys are boring. I don't want to even be here. And I'm going for a weekend. I have a return flight. Like, why is this a problem? So I missed this flight. I had to go to the U.S. embassy in London because I was already in London, get an emergency passport, go back. It was like, so it's a 7-minute long bit, but in the middle of the bit, when I'm getting turned away at the airport, this shit doesn't happen to me. Like I'm organized. Like this could have been an airport joke, but it's not. It's actually like an OCD organizational joke. I literally dot all my I's, cross all my T's. I am organized. This doesn't happen to me. And so I had this kind of anecdote that I would tell friends, and I didn't know where to put it. And now it's in the middle of this joke about how I went to the Brooklyn DMV and I had to get a New York license, New York plates, and then my dad actually gifted me his car. And when someone gifts you a car, it's different than if you're registering the car. And so I literally read the entire DMV website, printed out all the forms, filled them all out. I was the first person in line at the Brooklyn DMV at like 7 a.m. And I told the woman what I had to do. And she's like, okay, if you want to do that, you got to go in that line. And I go, I did it. And you got to fill out this form. And I was like, I did it. And she goes, fine. Then you need to go to this line and fill out that form. I was like, I did it. And she's like, well, if you need to do that. And I was like, I did it. And it's a gift. So I filled out this. And I don't know what this is, but I filled it out too. And the woman was like, all right. And I was like, I made the Brooklyn DMV woman smile. That's how fucking organized I am.
That is awesome.
And that example shows why when I get to the fucking airport in Finland, this shit doesn't happen to me. And that turns into how like I watch people run in the airport, and I've never run in an airport, but now I'm running in an airport. Like, you know what I mean? And basically explaining everything that's in my life never happened before because I would never allow this to happen. So this is like, Finland, you're wrong. Like, you know what I mean? So that story is like, that joke is from like 5 years ago, but even before that, that story was 5 years before that. So it was just there, and it didn't have a home. So it was written down, but I didn't know what I was going to, I thought it was a standalone, but it wasn't. It had to be pushed up against another story. And that's where I kind of encourage comics that you don't need to know where it's going to go. You don't even need to know what's funny about it. Just this happened, put it down. This is interesting, put it down. This is my perspective. I don't know why it's important, put it down. Because you always have a reference point, and even writing it, it stays in your brain a little bit longer, and you'd be surprised where it gets linked up to years, months, whenever later.
Awesome. Tell everybody what's coming up for you and about your tour.
everything's on my website. I'm always adding dates. I'm on the West Coast in like August, and then I'm taping my special September 16th in Brooklyn. And those tickets are selling really fast, which I'm grateful for. But all my stuff, all my touring stuff is on my website. And then I have 3 full hours free on YouTube, which is just YouTube/Liz Miele. And my book, Why Cats Are Assholes, is wherever you want to buy them. And then I'm actually coming out with a mini doc. I think by the time this comes out, I'll have a mini doc about my last European tour. So you can really hear about getting a ticket in Paris, because there's like a whole episode.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, my friend like sneakily was like taking film of it, and like so basically we have like a whole episode where we show like how a moment to an idea to a joke gets constructed, because that's literally what happened from the first day of our tour to the last day of the tour. But yeah, this mini doc called Jet Lagged is coming out, and we're going to release an episode a week for 4 weeks.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. We'll say cheers again to you. Good luck on your tour and everything. And we'll be continuing to watch you,
Yeah,
making
thanks for
us
having me.
laugh.
Yeah, I
And
appreciate it.
thank you for
welcome.
all the laughs.
Yeah.
Seriously, very funny. And it was a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, thanks guys. I really appreciate it.
You're
All
welcome.
right. Take
Take
care.
care.
Yeah, bye guys.
Bye.
Oh my
All
God.
right. So, oh, I know, right?
So great.
Incredible. You know what? I just love the fact that she's able to make you laugh, and in this way that's very relatable. She touches subjects sometimes that people don't like to talk about, but she does it in a way that is it's that authentic, real.
I was going to say she was very real with us,
Yeah, she
and
really was.
it's interesting to see the person against the showman or
Yeah,
showwoman,
yeah,
and see where it all comes from. And that's one of the things I love about talking to stand-ups, because I do find that comedians do tend to be darker in person than on stage, and it
yeah,
makes sense because you need something to draw from to make light of,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. Well, I think next up is going to be our in the kitchen with Nicole. So she is going to take us into some dark and light, maybe potentially. We'll see what she has. I actually was wondering, because Liz's last name is Miele, if maybe she was going to talk about a meal or something, But but no, I don't think so. So, but let's roll that clip for
let's
Nicole.
find out.
Yeah, let's roll that clip.
What's up, Ken and Blaze? I guess we're having a few laughs here today on the program. So I have a little joke for you and some commentary. What kind of potatoes are in the best shape? Hash browns, because they're totally shredded. Do you get it? Hee hee. So dietitians love a good food pun, but also we love to go out and dispel the myths surrounding our foods. And one of them that seems to float around, especially this time of year as everyone is quote unquote getting ready for summer, is that potatoes either make you gain body fat or are bad for you or bad for your blood sugar. Don't eat white foods, blah, 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 blah. We've heard it all. The reality is that potatoes are actually an excellent carb choice. They're an excellent source of vitamin C and potassium. We knew that bit already. And they're really, really versatile. Just because a food is white does not mean it doesn't have nutritional value. Think of our potatoes. Think of onions. Think of cauliflower. Yes, I'm going to say it. Go ahead and have white rice if you like it, because you know what? The recommendations are to make half of your grains whole, not all of them. So you know what that means? You can fit in your white carbohydrates as you please. And what about, hey, let's talk about other white foods, all our delicious dairy foods. Have you heard that cottage cheese is making a comeback? That's white too. So while we started out with a little joke about being shredded, I think the lesson here is that all foods can literally fit and you can still reach your dietary goals. And when someone gives you information that's very all or nothing, black or white, this or that, question them, question their credentials, question their intentions, and see what they're trying to sell you. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your week. Ken and Blaze, back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Nicole. Can't wait to have you in person sometime soon in season 3. It's going to be exciting.
It will be.
But
Ah,
listen, guys, we will catch you next week, and we're so looking forward to it. So have a good week, everybody. Take
cheers,
care.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.